what is happening, and probably because she had planted the seed in my mind, I knew instantaneously what was happening, and I thought we're under attack. And there was a brilliant flash of light which came from the corners of the wall which had given away, and immediately I was thrown about 25 feet back into the office next door. Still had the phone in my hand, and my response was immediate, again, because she had planted the seed, I'm sure. And I immediately started making my way towards Carl, who was about 25 feet away from me in front in another office.
What was going on with you, Carl?
I was sitting there working at my desk. I just got upstairs, or came down from downstairs watching the terrible scene of the World Trade Center. I sit down and my PC just comes and hits me in my face. But it was more than that. It was this instantaneous, this force that in my mind, closed my eyes, and I can hear the ripping of the metal, the tearing down the walls, and just this force that knocks me, I don't know how far back, but when I looked up, I saw nothing but just confusion. The walls were down. We were crawling over our studio where we work, and we went to the next room. We found some people. I call him Bird Dog because he was looking for a way out, and he said, "Cowboy, let's get out of here." So we did, and we went to the room and said, "Where are we?" I said, "We're in Delta 535, and I said, "Okay, let's keep moving." And we knew that where we had to go. And on the way, we heard people that were crying or were upset, but it was still not a sense of chaos, even though we were there where there was hardly any light except from the fire and from the emergency lights.
When I came to, the walls around me were on fire. One of the walls had collapsed on top of me, and I will believe until the day I die that deflected the fireball which had injured so many people in offices near us.
Well, your offices are on the first floor, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, and so, of course, some of the damage was overhead. The fireball, as you found out, literally went over your head.
It did indeed. I mean, there was obviously a fire source. For when I stopped, when I finally landed, everything around me was on fire, and the smoke was just incredible. The smoke was just billowing into our little corridor. Just an incredible rate, and frankly, there is a vacuum that happens on impact, and the air in my lungs were just sucked out, and the first breath that I took was just this intensely hot, thick smoke.
Burning.
You were knocked out. You were almost knocked out.
I wasn't knocked out, actually. I was spring-loaded. Immediately, I was up and over the walls and calling for Carl's.
As I understand it, that once you found that you were safe, you then tried to get other people out.
We did, and we started climbing over the rubble, and it was a matter of there were no floors left. I mean, it was just rubble on the floor that we were walking on top of, twisted desks and filing cabinets and portions of walls, so much so that you can lean on the ceiling at certain points, and I was, in fact, grabbing rebarb that was hanging out of the ceiling. I was amazed at the destruction. It was total. It was complete. Just as far as you could see, just nothing but rubble. And we got scared at one point for when we came up to where I thought that the hallway should have been. There was a cement blockade in our way, and I really got scared at that point because the smoke was so bad that I thought that we were entombed in it. But we were able to pull some cement away and bend some rebar back, and only upon reflection and hearing other stories that I truly believe that it was the floor that fell down, and it simply fell down like a garage door and continued to block sections of the hallway.
Were people following you? I mean, you have the nickname Bird Dog now.
When we had crawled through, I refused to die. I remember making a conscious decision in there. I am not going to die here in the Pentagon today. And when we got to that first cement blockade, and it was just a matter of running my hands along the wall, pulled some cement down, bent the rebar back, and Carl was hot on my tail, and we crawled through that and into another section. And when we crawled into that other section, there was just this eerie white dust on everybody's face, and I think one of the emergency lights had strangely illuminated the entire area. And a few people whose names I don't know, but whose faces I recognize, we pass them every day in the hallway. Everyone just had this look on this face like, did this really just happen? And I buzzed right by them, asking if everybody was okay. Carl was checking on other people, and you can hear people calling for other people. You can hear people making an immediate accountability there for their people in their area. And we continued our movement on out of the Pentagon. I knew where there was a door, and I just continued my movement towards that area.
Now, as I understand it, one of the first people who you saw when you got outside was Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld.
It was about a minute and a half or so after we had gotten outside, because as soon as we got outside and we made a run down the E-ring, we were on D-ring, of course, which is one hallway back from E-ring, which is the outside ring, and we ran down E-ring calling for people before we'd actually left the Pentagon, but E-ring, thankfully so, was vacated because in preparation for the renovation in the Pentagon, E-ring was vacated, and there wasn't much left to it, frankly. And at that moment, we saw some emergency people running into the building, and without respirators, we knew that we had to get out because the smoke was so bad. And as soon as we exited the Pentagon, there were people who had simply collapsed outside and gasping for fresh air, and we simply picked them up, and it was amazing to watch how the military just sort of naturally fell in line. There are certain skills that are simply instinctive to you when it's drilled into you. As a former soldier, I didn't even have to think about what happened. As a reserve officer, nor did Carl, and there was others on the spot.
As I understand it, the three-star general automatically started, in fact, organizing things out there.
Correct.
We saw a lieutenant colonel out there who was a doctor. She was the first, and I asked her what she needed me to do, and she said, make an IV, and I told her I'm not a medic, and she stretched the IV and said, make it look just like this.
They were improvising.
So as I understand it, at about that moment, you saw the Secretary.
Yeah, there was a secondary explosion. There was some confusion, some screaming. Somebody yelled out that it's probably a fuel tank. I remember thinking that makes sense, and we went back to work. And it was probably, I would say, 15, 20 minutes or so after the explosion when we were triaging these people. And we had medevaced one lady away who was burned. We just sort of made our way as these people came out. They would just be laid further down the line, and there was a point there about 15-20 seconds where I wasn't engaged. Carl was holding an IV bag, and I looked up and there was the Secretary of Defense, and I remember thinking, good for you, this makes sense. And I stood up and just started briefing the Secretary of Defense as to the injuries that we had sustained in this area, describing some of the injuries, describing that one lady had been medevaced away, and some of the other injuries that we saw.
So we want to report now that the Dover, Delaware facility, which is designed to handle casualties, that type of thing, we've seen it so many times used when there have been overseas disasters. It has been activated. It will be receiving those who did not make it, but we've just heard the story, the heroic story of somebody who, in fact, was able to survive. Miles?
CNN's Bob Franken reporting live from the Pentagon. To say that was a harrowing tale is a bit of an understatement. Let's go back to Islamabad, Pakistan. We had just reported to you a little while ago via Tom Mentir, our person there, that a briefing is about to begin with Pakistani officials in the wake of the U.S. Ambassador Wendy Chamberlain presenting her papers. The person we're about to hear from is Major General Rashid Qureshi. He is Pakistan's presidential press secretary. There he is right there. Let's listen in.
Okay. Oh, sorry. All right.
Start again.
Do we need the question again? At present, I don't think there's anything specific that has been asked. The President, General Pervez Musharraf, did make a statement last evening when he came back from Karachi to the capital, and he went into a high-level meeting last night, and he did make a statement. If any of you haven't got that statement, we can give that to you. What happened today was that the American ambassador to Pakistan presented her credentials to President, and there was an exchange of views there also. And I think after that short exchange of views, the American ambassador did talk to, I think, CNN for a short while. And I think she said what needed to be said.
General Musharraf says that he will cooperate with the United States. What does he mean? In what regard? Will he allow, for example, U.S. troops on his soil? Will he share intelligence? What kind of cooperation will he give?
You see, we cannot go into areas that haven't been discussed or defined as yet. So, and I'll read out his last sentence that he said yesterday, and that was that I wish to assure President Bush and the United States government of our, that is Pakistan's, unstinted cooperation in the fight against terrorism. Now, beyond that, we cannot really answer questions, the knowledge of which we do not have, answers of which we do not have.
What is she doing there?
No, that's not true. No Pakistani delegation has visited Kabul yesterday, as was reported.
Today also.
And today also, no.
Sir, can you tell us about the nature of discussions that General Mahmoud has had in the United States, especially with American intelligence officials, on which there have been many reports? And also, can you respond to those who say that this is perhaps the most critical time in Pakistan's relations with the United States, because you have to make a choice. Either you go with the United States, which would then mean taking a position against the Taliban and many groups that Pakistan has supported over the years, or decide to stand firmly against the U.S. What's your response to this overall question?
The first portion of your question, I have no knowledge of what has been discussed between General Mahmood and people in the United States. He is not in Pakistan as yet. I guess one will come to know after he returns. The second part, there needs to be a specific concern or requirement conveyed before a decision can be made. As I said before, there has been no specific demand. As far as your question of support is concerned, Pakistan has always said that the best way to deal with the Afghans is to engage with them. That's been Pakistan's policy, and that's how decisions have been made. In the past, Pakistan has conveyed to the United States and to all other countries that the best way to deal with the Afghans or the Afghan government is to continue to engage with them. Beyond that, Pakistan has always said that it does not support terrorism in any form. Pakistan is against it and has cooperated not only with the United States but with the world on combating terrorism in the past and will continue to do so in the future.
Has the United States contacted Pakistan for the extradition of Osama bin Laden? If they do, what will be Pakistan's response?
I frankly have no knowledge of what you've said.
It's a hypothetical question.
There's supposed to have been several meetings today, certainly, if not in Afghanistan, here in Pakistan, between yourselves and the Taliban. Could you give us some indication of what was discussed?
I don't think there was any meeting today between Pakistan government officials and the Afghans.
Apparently they were at the Foreign Ministry.
In the Foreign Ministry?
Yeah.
Then I'm not aware of that.
Sir, you talked about a high-level meeting last night presided over by the President of Pakistan. Could you give us some details about what that meeting was? And
All that had to be given was given out by the President. Beyond that, I don't think. Yes.
General, has Pakistan Intelligence Service picked up any intelligence that they've been able to convey to the United States on any groups or individuals in this region that may have been involved in these terrorist attacks?
Frankly, I do not know. I don't think that there has been any intelligence that Pakistan intelligence sources have picked up.
Have you heard reports that the Taliban have detained Osama bin Laden today under house arrest, and do you give any credence at all to those reports?
I read a report in the Times of India, on the Times of India website, referring to what you have said. This was Dateline Dubai, and at the bottom was a very thin line saying that it has been denied by the Taliban. So I really don't know. We have no information about it.
However, there was a report which I saw on the BBC very recently, just about, I think, about an hour and a half back.
They have lifted from, I suppose, from the same source.
General, when President Clinton visited here, he invited the Pakistani government to face the choice, as he put it, between going with the West, going with globalization, going with the developing economies of the world, and choosing another bleaker path. Is there a sense in your government that the moment has arrived at which you're going to have to make that choice?
What makes you think that we are, or have been, or would be on the bleaker path? We are on the path where the entire humanity is. We are on the path where the world would like to be. We are on the path where right is. We are on the path where justice is. We are with the rest of the civilization of this world. This is what the President has said, that we join the world community in condemning in the strongest possible